Hi, everyone. Tanya Hertz here. I'm going to talk a little bit more this afternoon about some of the tools that we can use as managers to monitor and to improve our employees' responses to stress, improve their behavioral issues, their performance, and even things like problem solving, increases in problem solving. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about stress and what stress actually is. I will be sharing my screen with you and start stress. Stress is that perceiving, responding to situations that challenge or threaten us, and it can be negative and it could potentially be positive. Most of us do not want a job that is extremely stressful, but at the same time, do we really want a job that's completely stress-free, right? Because some stress actually is positive, and it depends on the type of stress. Is it a challenge stressor, or is it a hindrance stressor? Right? Is it something that's good or bad? Now, responses to stress can be emotional. They can be psychological. They can be physiological. We can see increases in perspiration, heart rate, cholesterol level, blood pressure. There are very, very serious consequences to stress, especially long-term stress that doesn't go down. So it's normal for us to have stressors, and stressors are those incidences that cause stress. And stresses go up, stresses go down, stressors go up, stresses go down, and that's normal. It's when there's a constant elevated level of stressors that employees need to deal with that you really see those long-term negative consequences as a result. So again, stress can facilitate or inhibit performance depending on the situation, depending on whether, again, it's a challenge stressor or a hindrance stressor, positive or negative. And it's important that we as employers are monitoring our employees' stress levels, that we are identifying causes of that stress and teaching our employees how to learn to relax, how ensuring that they have downtime, that those stressors are not constant, and that there are fluctuations, and that most of the stress that we're tolerating is stress that helps us to grow, helps us to be better people, and not the negative types of stress that don't do anything positive. Activating event. Something happens to or around someone. And the main idea behind this ABC model is that, and it really in most forms of cognitive behavioral therapy, is that a person doesn't necessarily have to change their environment to become happier and healthier. They simply have to recognize and change their reactions to their environment. So this takes a little bit of self-awareness, but that's something that we're all able to do. When something happens, it's not immediately followed by a consequence. So if there is a stressor, something negative happening in our lives, it's, the ABC model states that it's not immediately followed by C, the consequence, but there's something in the middle, the belief. And it's how we perceive that stressor that really leads to finally the consequence. And the consequence can be something healthy and it can help us to grow, or it can be something negative, depending on the response that we take. If we have an irrational response or irrational belief, then I like to actually use the ABCDE method, because the D is the disputing, the disputation. That's saying to ourselves, no, I'm going to dispute this negative belief, turn it into a rational belief. And then you have E, which is the new effect. And that takes that the disputation has turned the irrational belief into something rational, into a healthy consequence. And so B is followed by a healthy C, rather than a negative belief followed by an unhealthy C. So again, Excellent model, this ABC model. It's the precursor to almost all forms of cognitive behavioral therapy, where we have something happening, typically a stressor. So that could be something like, let's say we held a meeting and could tell that the meeting just didn't go as planned. So the belief could be, wow, I'm terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. I shouldn't have this job, right? Maybe I should go do something else with my life. This is, that negative self-talk, that slippery slope thinking that a lot of us have. Instead, replacing that with rational thought, saying, okay, what went wrong? Well, maybe it was something like we didn't stick to our agenda, or I didn't have time to prepare beforehand. I didn't allow myself enough time to prepare. And so then we have a more positive emotional consequence, and we say, okay, well, then next time let's study a little bit more, or prepare a little bit more, and stick to the agenda. Right. So that disputing, challenging the belief can lead to positive effect after all. Okay. So problem solving. It's also really important as managers, as leaders, to help our employees to identify opportunities in problems. So we should be viewing problems as opportunities for improvement, and really developing different ways of looking at problems and looking at things. We're going to look at another technique that we can use for problem solving. It's called the NGT method. It's the nominal group technique, and this is a way of problem solving in teams. And it helps us to implement the best solution and assess the impact of that solution using, it looks like this, the nominal group technique. So in our team meetings, and as a leader of teams, you get the people together and say, hey, we're gonna change this. This last meeting we had wasn't good, right? We all saw people leaving early, coming late. We got off track. It was not good. Let's fix this. And so you identify the issue. Number one, first thing. Next is where the teamwork really comes in. So the identifying the issue is up to the leader. The second step, where each member presents their solution. And then if there are any duplicates, you get rid of the duplicates. Then you discuss each idea as a group, anything that's not a duplicate. Then you vote, you vote and you rank the options. And then you pick a solution and you repeat the process. You can use this as part of the nominal group technique. Excellent way to look at the outcome is over here. This one was our day-long workshop was a disaster. Okay. It happens. To get into it and to get to the root cause of that disaster, rather than having that irrational sort of, oh, everything's terrible, oh, it was a bad thing, and not learn anything from it, right? We really love failures and problems as managers if we're good managers and we can take every single failure as an opportunity to learn. And I always tell my staff, if you're not failing, you're failing, right? Because if you're not failing, that means you're not trying hard enough, and you're not pushing yourself to grow and to learn. And so you don't want to do the same sort of failures again and again. You want to have that failure followed by the solution. And then finally, doing it again and not doing that same mistake again. Maybe another mistake, but not that same mistake. All right. So we can also do, as a team, force field analyses, and these are great for looking at a problem differently. What is pushing you to be on the right side, and what's holding you back? And you got to try to get past this, this equilibrium to your new equilibrium, to the new point where you need to be, where you're actually starting your exercise program. Okay. So one way that we can be better at problem solving is improving our creativity. Brainstorming is an effective way to improve creativity. It is excellent. It's excellent when done in teams. Brainstorming should not be a solo endeavor. We can get some benefits from brainstorming by ourselves, but better done in groups. When you are brainstorming, you never want to shoot an idea down right when it comes out. You want to write down all ideas, designate one person as the the note taker. And there's another system that we use, and maybe I'll share. I think I do share about it later in the semester. It's the Scrum technique for meetings, and excellent way to come up with new solutions and to be more creative in teams. But at any rate, back to the brainstorming. Brainstorming is part of it. Make sure that you have that designated person. They're writing down everything, right? Everything that's coming out of people's mouths, even if it's a little off the wall, that's okay. Encourage people to be a little off the wall. If somebody's not speaking, as the leader, encourage them to speak. Again, tease that out of them. Get them to be part of the solution. Sometimes it's tough with getting people to think creatively because of this functional fixedness or fixedness, functional fixedness. That's that idea that there's a certain use for things, or there's a certain way things are done, and it's really fixed, right? And so we're not going to look at it differently. We're not going to look at how we can use something differently or do something differently. And this is a real big reason that we have mental blocks. So for example, if you have a hammer and a nail, you know what a hammer and a nail is used for. And so you can't think of other uses for a hammer and nail, or other ways to nail something against the wall. These are mental blocks. And so we really want to encourage people to think differently. There's a few exercises that we can do to help with this. We do a lot of these in entrepreneurship. Like there's a wallet exercise that I do in entrepreneurship. There's an exercise where I like to just pick an item, look around and pick an item, and try to think of different uses for that item. And it can really help us to kind of think outside the box, think of things differently, like a chair, right? Think of a different use for a chair, right? What do we normally use chairs for sitting on, right? Think of 5 other things that you can use a chair for. And that's when creativity really starts to flow. It's a good idea to think in terms of analogies. So think in stories rather than into, rather than in a very cause and effect kind of way, or a really prescribed way. Instead, think of things like, pictures. Pictures are great. Think of things in terms of like I'll give you just a clear another great example of way that you can get people to start thinking creatively. Don't let them say anything. Give them a problem and have them cut things out of magazines, draw things, do anything but no talking. And you'll come up with some really unique solutions to problems. And people can sometimes feel silly when they're first doing it, but really, this is how you innovate. This is how you don't get stuck in a rut and start doing the same things over and over. As leaders, you're the one who sets the stage. You're the one who tells people it's okay to be silly sometimes. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to do things differently. Just because this is a business doesn't mean that we always have to be just dry and boring and the same. If you want your employees to innovate and to be creative, you have to lead by example. Yeah. And one thing I do want to say about problem solving is typically it's enhanced by diverse groups. Creativity is enhanced by diversity. Diversity is generally a very good thing, but be aware that diversity can cause conflict, especially at the beginning of the interactions. But conflict is not a bad thing, especially when the diversity is something that we can, the longer that we get to know each other, typically that conflict goes away. When people are together and they're not getting better, that means that the diversity is really on a deep level. And then that type of diversity, it's not enhanced. It doesn't get better over time. It actually gets worse. And so as managers, these are the kinds of things that you need to think about. And so it's always a good idea to have diversity in terms of surface level diversity on teams, but not necessarily deep level diversity. All right. Lots of things thrown at you there. There's a lot to talk, a lot more to talk about, a lot more tools that we can use when it comes to problem solving in businesses. But the point is just do it with your teams. Don't let a problem, don't let it fester. Don't ignore them. Just get in there and come up with creative solutions, and your teams will love you because of it, and you'll really get to some better places. All right. We will see you at the next one. Take care, everyone.